Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 22 of Listeners Beware, a podcast about all things Goosebumps. My name is Gary.
And I'm Ashley.
And today we are talking about book number 21.
Go Eat Worms.
I will not.
And also, season 2.
Yeah.
We are now in season 2. Thank you for those who have been on the journey with us. We are turning the corner, wiggling our way into season 2.
Oh,
Woo!
I see what you did there.
You see what I did?
Yes. Yeah, thank you, everyone. We're glad to be back with all new episodes discussing old books. Yeah, that makes sense.
Old and the new. Now we just need something blue?
I guess so.
All right. Well, here we go. So, Gary, would you like to give us a little bit of the synopsis of our book? You're so good at it.
Well, thank you. I would love to. They're creepy and they're crawly. They're totally disgusting. Obsessed with worms? That's putting it mildly. Todd is so fascinated with worms, he keeps a worm farm in his basement. Most of all, Todd loves torturing his sister and her best friend with worms, dropping them into their hair, down their backs. Until one day, after cutting a worm in half, Todd notices something strange. The rest of the worms seem to be staring at him. Suddenly, worms start showing up in the worst places for Todd. In his bed, in his homework, even in his spaghetti. What's a worm lover to do when his own worms are starting to gross him out?
Yeah, I mean, this book is not for the faint of heart. If you don't like slimy, creepy, crawly things, this is not the book for you because R.L. is really good at describing the worms in this book.
He is. Where do you stand on the subject?
I don't like worms. I don't like to touch anything that's slimy and creepy. So worms, slugs, snails, anything like that, that is not for me. I'm not scared of them. I just don't want to touch them. It's gross.
I can agree with that. That's pretty much where I'm at. Although I think this book, particularly the episode, may have actually given me more of a phobia than I had before of worms. But we'll get to that.
We're gonna get to that.
Right.
So in terms of the book, though, I think that the descriptions of the worms were solid. This was one of those books for me that bordered on not really super horror until halfway through.
Yeah. It's more of a mystery, and there's, little elements that kind of drive the first half of the book. At the end, I don't know if any of it really makes sense, but it is fun kind of riding along on the journey with Todd.
Yeah, I'm with you. I feel like there were two storylines going on. We had the one where, the siblings are pranking each other in the science fair. And I do think they kind of dropped the horror they tried to build in the beginning and maybe it was like a red herring, but with Patrick. Yep. He's this new kid. He's got all this fancy stuff and maybe he's up to no good. He lives maybe in a spooky spot. And then I feel like they really backed off of Patrick after that section. And I'm like, you did a lot of buildup only to drop this character.
It was an interesting move. I don't think I understand it.
I don't know if it was just trying to play on a lot of different fears.
Mm-hmm. Could have been.
In one book, but it felt really disjointed because I'm like, is Patrick maybe a worm? Like a worm person? Is he doing something like mad scientist? Like what's going on with that? And then he just kind of falls back into the, background noise. And suddenly it's something else, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it's the worms. The worms are now creepy. And then, oh my gosh, now there's a giant worm. Spoiler alert. And it just, I don't know. It just felt like it was all over the place.
It did, yeah. I feel like Patrick was there to kind of ham-fist in the horror element for a minute, but then it was all a misdirect with him. And it just, I don't know. It felt very strange.
Yeah, I'm with you. It was strange indeed. I didn't like any character in this book. I didn't feel like any of them were protagonists. I thought they were all a bit obnoxious.
Yep. I made a note of that. I said, it's hard to know who to root for when everyone sucks.
That needs to be the log line. of this book.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you though, because Todd's just mean.
Mm-hmm.
He's not even what's the word I'm looking for? He's not even like a jokester. He's not even really like a clown. He's just mean.
Yeah.
He's taking it too far with his sister. He promises her, "Hey, I won't do this to you if you give me this information." She gives it to him, albeit it's wrong, but he doesn't know that. And he
Mm-hmm.
still does it anyways. He still drops worms down her clothes. And it's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
But then he's mad at her whenever he thinks that she's pranking him and tells on her, like, "Mom, make her stop. Mom, this isn't funny." And it's like, dude, you have been going beyond far
Mm-hmm.
with everybody that you can, but this is the line. This is when you tell.
Right. Yeah. It's frustrating because, I mean, we talk about the bully element of R.L. Stine's books, but it feels like this is just a book full of bullies. Like everyone is bullying someone else. No one behaves like a normal person. It's kind of bizarre.
Yeah, I do feel like out of all of them, Regina is probably the least bully just because she's reactive to what he's been putting her through. He can't take what he dishes,
Mm-hmm.
literally dishing worms into her food at school.
Yeah.
But yet, when something's in his sandwich or something's in his cereal, he's like, "Oh my God, Mom, make her stop." And I do feel at this point, because the implication at the beginning is he does this so much that she's just reactive at this point.
Yeah. She's bullying based on victimhood, which is a complicated, line to walk.
I think it's just self-defense, to be honest.
That makes sense.
Like, I think she finally was trying to teach him a lesson of this is what it feels like, and he can't take it.
No.
Sometimes you have to mirror people's behavior back because they don't understand just how bad it is. And I feel like a lot of what Regina was doing was mirroring back what he had been doing to everybody else. Now, some might say two wrongs don't make a right, but I feel like sometimes people do not learn a lesson until it is done directly to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And Todd learned some lessons, I think.
And more than science lessons.
Yeah. Horror science.
Yeah, I do feel like this book was all over the place. There were so many solid scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, man, that would be great on its own. That would be great in its own world. But them all shoved together felt like we had just like a hodgepodge of different horror elements and different horror scenes that I'm like, how are these? I get it's in the same world, it's the same character, but how are these going together?
Right. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it moves from set piece to set piece at such a clip that it's like, it's almost hard to talk about this book because like there are the moments that stand out, but just so much was thrown at us and I don't know how much of it stuck.
I mean, scenes to give nod to that I thought were really well done.
Mm-hmm.
I could go for positive. Let's do a positive so that we're not completely ripping apart R.L. Stine's wormy book. I really, 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 really enjoyed, if enjoyed could be the word, but I thought the bath scene was phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
Him going to relax in the middle of the night, everyone's asleep. He decides to take a bath because he can't sleep. And suddenly you've got the worms just in his bath. He can't get out. He's slipping because they've all filled the bottom of the bath and he's drowning and they're pulling him under and it's terrifying.
Mm-hmm. That's my favorite part of the book.
Being drowned by worms. Like
right.
Death by worms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's about the only way you could have death by worms, I feel like.
Well, unless you have a giant worm.
Well, yeah. I guess that's true.
But I enjoyed that scene.
I did too.
Like, for some reason, my mind went directly to Nightmare on Elm Street when she's in the bathtub and Freddy's hand came off.
Yep, absolutely.
And I'm like, yes. And I don't know if RL got his inspiration from that. However, I think anytime you have a bathroom scene where someone is in the bath or the shower, we're not wearing clothes typically. So we're extra vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes you can't see. It's slippery. So if you had to run, you can't run. And so there's lots of vulnerable and scary elements if you were to be attacked while you are in that scenario or that situation. So I think it's fun when books or movies know how to do that effectively. I think this was really effective. It was fun. You know, you hear a plop, and then he opens his eyes and there's a worm, and then plop, plop, plop. And then suddenly they're just raining down, and not just from the faucet. Now they're coming from the ceiling. And
Yeah,
it's like, oh my God, this is terrifying. And they're wiggling all under him in the bathtub. And oh, that was fun.
oh yeah, it's told in such a descriptive nature. Like the way he used every single word in that scene was to a point, and I think he really nailed it.
Oh, yeah. Every single word served a purpose. There was no extra fluff in there. And it hit really hard and fun.
Yeah.
And I don't know. There's not that many bathroom scenes in horror that I would be like, oh man, that's, that's super well done. But that is one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was a Topps trading card that was never released, but I stumbled across a photo of it, and it's of Todd laying in the bathtub covered in worms, and it's what you would hope for it to be.
I'm gonna look this up. Give me a quick moment. Oh my gosh!
Right?
Okay, so that's pretty stellar.
Yeah.
I know listeners can't see it, but if you have a chance, Google Topps trading card Go Eat Worms. This is just phenomenal and terrifying, and exactly what you would envision. Although he looks like he's kind of swimming in spaghetti a bit. The dark spots almost look like meatballs.
Oh, yeah.
However, his face of horror, his mouth's wide open, and all I can think is, close your mouth, the worm's gonna fall in.
I know. But I love it. You can see the worms coming out of the faucet too, and it's just like, bleh, bleh. They're in the toilet.
I mean, it's terrifying.
It is.
So, yeah, that was fun. But also even just the scene where he is in bed, which is shortly before that, and he feels the worms.
Mm-hmm.
And he jumps out of bed, and they're on his pajamas, and they're on his cheek. And, oh no, he's mashed a few because he was thrashing around. And that was fun too, because creepy crawly things in your bed while you're asleep aside, it's also kind of reminiscent of a grave.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so it's like you've got dirt and worms and you're sleeping on it, and it's like, ooh, welcome to your grave, Todd.
I like the voice. Welcome to your grave, Todd.
Welcome to your grave. No, sir, I don't want some more worms. So I thought those scenes were fun. And here's the thing. We've talked in the past on episodes about, like, if we could fix a book, how would we fix it?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to skip forward to that topic.
Okay.
Just so that I can say this. These are scenes I would leave in. These are the things that I would make this. These are the things I think would make this book land if you pulled other things out.
Yes, I 100% agree with that. I'm going to agree with you on those two scenes. The other scene that I loved was the beginning where, they're going out and they're hearing rumbling coming from the ground, and they're convinced it's an earthquake, but no one in this school is feeling it. Like that's a fun concept that could have been done a little better if it had been more of a primary focus, I feel like.
Yes. And it was also the common thread throughout the book. Every time they go out to get worms, they hear the rumbling and they think it's an earthquake. And the fact that someone else experienced it, like Patrick. Yeah. And so, I agree. If they had leaned into that a bit more, they had really kind of blown that up a bit more and connected it with these other scenes, I think it would have landed a whole lot harder. Because Patrick, the haunted house thing that she tricked him with or whatever, to me, that was unnecessary. I think that distracted too much. It veered left too much. His sister playing a prank on him and sending him to the wrong house. And the implication they tried to make, the red herring that Patrick is a worm because of the dirt in the sink and the dirt, in the living room. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
But then they drop it. It'd be different if he thought Patrick was a part of that throughout the entire book. And maybe Patrick's leading the worms or Patrick's whatever. And then he's not.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. But the fact that they put it so hard in the beginning and then just backed off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to me, it's like, just that's a throwaway. Pull the haunted house out. Pull that out. You can still have Patrick competing in the science fair with his own worm skyscraper. And they also tried to do little implications of like the liquids in the gas did something in the worms. Now the worms are aware, but they
Right.
dropped that too.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to imply something, go there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really lean into it. It felt like a lot of half-stepped implications.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, we'll never know, right? Unless we can just get RL on to point blank ask him. But if we have him on the podcast, we're not even going to be like, go make worms make sense. Like that's
Make
not
it
going
make
to be,
sense.
that's not going to be our main point of having him on the show.
It
But
might be.
it might be. Yeah. I really need answers actually. But, who knows why all of these loose threads are there. Like maybe he had ideas, maybe they had to change things. I really don't know. Maybe Scholastic wouldn't let things fly. We always have to take that as a consideration because, they tend to be like, it's too dark. Make it for kids.
Yeah, I feel like all of these are attempts at misdirections.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think they were effective misdirections, because if you have a red herring or you have misdirections, they kind of have to thread throughout,
Yeah.
right? So that when you pull the punch at the end or reveal the punch, it hits that much harder. But to have so many different ones, is Patrick a worm person? Is the lick of gas, did it do something to the worms so they're now aware and alive? And well, they were always alive, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, going after Todd. I mean, they were just one too many and they didn't keep threading.
Right.
So
Right.
if you're going to have a red herring, it has to stay consistent until the last moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If it weren't for the set pieces mentioned earlier, I don't think that this book would be very good. There's not a lot. It's so jumbled and messy. And that's
And
not,
the characters aren't likable.
yeah. That's not what I come to Goosebumps for,
We know in Goosebumps, some of the characters aren't likable, but when none of them are likable,
it's challenging.
it's just like, oh boy.
Yeah. I don't know.
Honestly, I think the only likable character in this whole book was probably Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
Because to him, he's like, "Ooh, I did something that, you were doing." And it wasn't like, "Ooh, I'm copying you and I'm gonna do better than you." He's like, "Oh, I was so inspired by you."
Yeah.
And I felt like that was sincere, because even when he's like, "I think I might win. Do you want to come over and play on my computer?" Like, I really think he just wants to be friends with these kids.
Yeah.
But Todd's so mean to him all the time that he ends up being a bully himself.
Mm-hmm.
And, doing the comic book, making fun of Todd.
Well, yeah, you can't really blame him. Patrick is definitely that insecure kid that should maybe choose a different crowd or a different path, because these kids aren't worth your time, bud.
No, not at all. I was still curious in how Danny won the science fair. Like, they went so left, like all these really cool experiments, and then they're just like, the balloon solar system won. Way to go, Danny. Like, really? That's what we went with?
Yeah. I mean, a worm skyscraper, every school does that. Let's go with something obscure like a balloon solar system.
Well, even the one where they're hinting at the experiments with acids and gases and
Right.
liquids, and it's like, and you went with the balloon.
Also, what
solar
school is
system
this?
model. That the kids were allowed to play with acid?
Yeah.
I don't know, because I thought it was like an elementary school, and then they're like, "Oh no, the acid broke. Was it the acid? Tell me it wasn't the acid." Like, how many times can you say acid in this chapter? I might need acid to get through this story.
Yeah, it would have helped.
A
Although
little bit.
Although that bathtub scene would have probably been horrifying on acid.
Oh, I would be traumatized. I'd never want to take a bath again. I'd be like, never.
Nope.
Were there any other scenes that you liked?
Not really. Nothing that like jumped out at me as much as those others. What about you?
I don't think so. I was trying to think. I guess if I can't think of it, then they didn't stick out that well. So
yeah, it's funny. I read this 2 days ago and into Anyways, it hasn't been long since I've read it, and
Mhm.
it is immediately forgettable in a lot of ways.
Except for those scenes,
Except
which I
for
think
those
would be
scenes.
epic. Honestly, I think they could be their own little short films and still hit hard without having all this other fluff added in and misdirection and, dropped plot hole or dropped plot lines.
Yeah.
And so it's just, I don't think it's a bad book. It's not the worst Goosebumps book that we've read, in my opinion. However, I think it's the most disjointed.
It's definitely, that's the word, disjointed. I thought that those scenes really told a story and painted a picture, and then the rest of it just, I was struggling to stay interested.
Absolutely. And I think the stories told a story and painted a picture together.
Mm-hmm.
They could have fed a story. Speaking of feeding, the peanut butter and jelly sandwich scene was also fun.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about
You know,
that.
Yeah, taking a bite of a sandwich and then munch. This tastes funny, and he opens it and there's worms. Oh God, that's just gross.
And he described the taste of it. Like, how did you Encyclopedia Britannica that, or like?
I think one could just imagine.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
if you've ever touched a worm, you can imagine what that texture would be like. But I don't want to imagine it. That's gross.
it's so gross. It's so gross.
It's so gross.
Yeah, I'll still take showers, but baths may be out for me. PB&Js are out for me. School is definitely out for me.
School's out for summer. Yeah, so I don't know. I do like that they show a character who has an unusual hobby.
Mm-hmm.
He really is into worms. He researches them, he studies them, he collects them, he's building a house for them. He seems to really be genuinely interested in worms. So that was fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he was just a jerk. Todd the Tool.
Todd. Ooh, Tool Todd.
Tool Todd.
Tool Todd.
Todd the Tool. His poor little sister.
I know. And
she knew how to fight back.
Mm-hmm. She did, as we come to find out.
She fought worms with worms. I mean, kudos to her. I'm still trying to figure out how she got worms all over his bed while she's away at a sleepover.
Yeah, that one, that's another point. Like, I don't know, this book just has so many loose threads that don't get tied together. It's frustrating.
The only thing I can think of, wasn't he being punished or something and had to stay after school and then came home?
Oh, that's possible.
Or was he at Danny's house? I don't remember, but I feel like for some reason, I feel like he was elsewhere, got home late, and then went to bed, and they were in his bedroom, which I guess she could have done earlier in the day, anticipating he wasn't going to be home early, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the only thing that makes sense. And that's being pretty gracious. Like, I would think that the worms, given enough time, would find their way away from the mattress, like it wouldn't be such a surprise. Like, you'd walk in, it's like, there's worms everywhere. I don't know.
And I guess who gets into their bed when it's dark that way? Wouldn't you have pulled the covers back and seen it when the light was still on? Or maybe some people do. They turn off the lights, go get in bed. I feel like I'd run into something. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely would run into something, possibly the bed. But, yeah, like if I go into my room and it's completely dark, I am using my cell phone to check the bed before I lay down. Like, that's how I process.
I don't think Todd had a cell phone.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Flashlight.
This was in the 90s.
Yeah.
In fact, I believe it was July 1994. So no cell phone for Todd. However, because it did explain when he went in, he changed into his pajamas.
Mm-hmm.
And so if the worms were on his pillow, which one, somewhere on his face.
Yeah.
And then you think he would have seen while he was changing for bed the worms on his pillow. But who knows? Maybe I guess I don't pay attention to what's on my pillow before I go to bed, but I'm gonna.
Thanks for the lesson in life, RL.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you, Todd. It's a new way of soiling the sheets, I guess.
Ew. And I love how his mom treated it that way. She's
I
like,
know.
I think you should go take a bath. And he's like, what? She's like, yeah, you need to go wash off.
Yeah.
You know what I love is that at some point he's like, I've had enough. Enough is enough. I'm going to figure out how they're getting out. He goes into the basement to do this like covert operation. He thinks the worms can hear him. For some kid who has like been researching worms and all this studying worms, he's like, they can see me. I have to hide behind this bowl. They can hear me. I need to be very quiet when I breathe. And then of course what happens? Like dad comes down with a baseball bat. I heard you moving around. I'm like, well, if dad heard you upstairs, the worms definitely heard you. And they're laughing at you right now.
Mm-hmm. And you deserve it, kid.
And I just love the dad's like, enough is enough. Get rid of this.
Yeah.
This shit. I would be that parent too. Like, I've had enough. They're out. Get them out.
Right. Right.
Get them out of the house. Get them out of my yard. Just get them.
Get those worms out of my life. Todd.
Yeah. Todd, you tool. So dad put his foot down, which is great because, you know, oftentimes in these books, we don't see very strong parenting, right? The parents are either non-existent, they're negligent, they're maybe partially invested, they don't believe the kids. And in this case, dad's like, enough. And I love that dad came down with a baseball bat. Like he was ready to face off with an intruder. He's like, I am about to fuck someone up.
You get it, baseball dad.
Right? Baseball dad for the win. Swing, batter, 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 swing.
One of the few people who acted like a human being in this book.
It's true.
Yeah.
So mom was too. She was over there fighting. She kept them, you know, calm, tried to kind of keep things calm because when he freaked out in bed over the worms, she was the first one to run in there.
Right.
Like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? And so I do think that like this is probably the most present parents we've seen.
Yeah.
They're trying to stop them from fighting, stop them from pranking each other, disciplining them. And it's like,
Yeah,
way to go, parents.
This might be a first. Parenting done right and Goosebumps.
No, because Todd's still a tool, and part of that has to be parenting.
Well, that's true. That's true.
He's been enabled.
They just finally grew a spine in this story.
A Stine spine?
A Stine spine. Something worms don't have.
They don't. You can cut them in half, apparently, and they wiggle into two separate worms.
Yeah, I meant to see
How
if
many
that was
times
true.
do you think you can cut a worm and that happens?
I don't know. Well, they have multiple hearts, I think. Or no, multiple brains. I don't know. I'm basing most of my logic on Earthworm Jim, and that's probably not the right way to do it.
Well, it depends on the worm.
Okay.
But apparently flatworms, you can cut as small as 1/20th of their adult body size and they can regenerate from that small piece. So it says that most of them you can cut into as many as 279 pieces and it will result in more flatworms. Ooh, now that's a nightmare.
That's horrible. Man, I hope they have their tetanus shots.
So, that's terrifying. It's like a little hydra worm.
So, yeah, they have one brain, which is located in the third segment of the worm's body. That's an odd place for it. So I guess I assume if you cut... It
depends on the worm.
Yeah, I assume if you cut through their brain, they're probably not going to make it. But then again, I don't know.
I think it just depends on the worm.
Crazy.
So there you go. Poor worms. Hopefully people aren't out there just like slice and dicing them. You be kind to worms. They're
Right?
people's too.
Yeah.
I like that. So they've been pranking each other. Todd can't figure out what's going on. He really thinks at this point the worms are after him because they've ended up in his books, his backpack, his food, his hat, his bed, everywhere. And so he is, I mean, obviously it's getting to him. He's afraid because he had that whole nightmare in the bathtub, epic scene.
Yes.
And so it's getting to him. And, you know, we find out the next day at school that Beth and Regina had been doing this, and Regina admits she's been the one putting worms in his stuff, and she's like, kudos to me, I'm a great actress. Ta-da! And I'm like, great, another Todd in the making.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, wonderful. Two monsters. But still, kudos to her for pulling it off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, to be able to get into his stuff without him noticing. And the fact that, let's not forget, she doesn't like worms. She doesn't like to touch them. But she is trying to get enough revenge that she's willing to touch many of them.
Yes.
To put them in his food, in his backpack, in his bed. And so it's like, wow, she faced a fear.
She did. She did. And really above and beyond in the fear department, I feel like.
He deserved it. He
did.
ruined their science project. They worked so hard on it. You know, that 12-foot bird or whatever it was. Like, they worked really hard on it. And for him to put a ton of worms in there and sabotage their experiment the day of the science fair, like, I really feel like he had it coming.
Mm-hmm. He did.
That was so mean.
What goes around comes around, Todd. And
I like at the beginning, they tried to imply Danny likes to play pranks just to play pranks, and he's kind of not the nice one. But the more you're exposed to Todd, it's like, God, he's so angry.
Yeah, I know.
Like, he's thinking awful things about Patrick during the science fair. He is doing really mean and cruel things to Regina and Beth. And he's not a nice kid. They try to paint Danny as the one who's not nice, but I feel like Todd's a bit of more of a jerk.
Yeah. It just makes it so hard. Like, I keep going back to the fact that, like, I don't really want to root for anyone in this book.
I don't either.
You know, I'm rooting against Todd if I'm actively rooting for anything.
I'm rooting for the worms.
Yeah. Because even at a certain point, it seems like he stops loving the worms and starts going kind of mad scientist on them. And it's like, well, that's not okay either.
Yeah, the fact that he thought it'd be funny to take one and cut it in half just to creep out Regina and Beth. It's like, that is so mean.
Yeah. What is he doing that's not written about, you know?
Yeah, exactly. You know, and speaking of the worms, Todd and Danny go to the baseball fields because Todd wants to get revenge after he finds out that Regina has been the one putting the worms in all of his stuff. And he's like, we got to get more worms, more. And of course, the quaking that's been going on every time they dig for worms throughout the book starts to happen again. And this time Todd's ignoring it. Danny's trying to warn him, hey, something's happening. And Todd's like, dig more, dig deeper, bigger, more. Like, he's in full mad scientist mode.
Yes, 100%.
And of course, the ground splits open. And what comes out from the ground, Gary?
The mama worm.
A huge, giant mama worm. She is the size of a tree, is what they say.
Yes. Yeah.
And she's pissed.
Uh-huh. And this is like Tremors in a suburban neighborhood.
I'm down with it. I like Tremors, and I'm kind of rooting at this point for Mama Worm to eat Todd. No, it's not going to happen because it's an RL book. However, I was hoping.
Boo. But yeah, I'm with you.
What's funny is he thinks he's done for. He's like, the shadows are approaching. It's over. Dun, 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 dun. And instead, Regina and Beth pass by carrying their huge giant bird that he was making fun of the entire time. And the shadow scares off the worm.
Yeah, which is kind of funny.
Giant bird shadow scares off giant worm.
I mean, that tracks, I suppose. It's a good thing it was a sunny day.
It's a good thing they were walking by and they even listened to him because they were going to ignore him and he's screaming for help from them. And then, you know, fine. And they come over and off it goes. But all that aside, he just escaped a giant worm that lives under the baseball field. Mm-hmm. Would you want to go back to that school?
No. No, I would not.
It's like life returns back to some kind of normal. He tosses out the worms in the garden. And it's completely glazed over that this tree-sized giant killer worm lives under your school playground. Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess it's only a threat if you're actively digging for worms.
For the babies?
Yeah. Yeah. Protect the babies.
Protect the babies. You're my little babies.
They're so much smaller than her.
I know, right? She's the size of a tree and he's describing things like the size of a thumb. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, wow.
She got macro babies.
Papa worm is like little. Do worms mate that way? I don't know how do worms. How did they come to be?
Safe search.
Safe search. I love safe search. Let's look it up. Worms. How are they produced? Oh my gosh, they do mate.
Huh.
Okay. 2 mature worms mate. I'm not going to get too graphic because this is still a podcast, but
A slime tube?
male cells on each worm fertilize the female cells on the other. Each fertilized worm, so they fertilize each other?
Huh.
Wow. That's kind of creepy and cool. They have both cells,
Yeah.
male and female, and then they exchange for the counter. I wonder how they know what. Oh, well, I guess male on both exchanges to female on the other, and then bada boom, worm baby on both.
Wow. Form a cocoon. The worms produce a sheath that moves down their bodies, gathering eggs and sperm. The sheath then slips off and becomes a cocoon.
The cocoon will drop off the worm and into the soil, where the eggs will hatch after about 14 to 21 days. It contains 1 to 6 worms, which are initially pale and about the size of a cotton strand.
We've learned so much today.
Worms can produce 20 to 30 cocoons per year. And if that's 1 to 6 worms in a cocoon, that's at most 180 worm babies a year. Holy cow.
Wow.
Mama's working, mama, papa.
How long do worms
Mappa?
live? Mappa. And they live 2 to 7 years. So in their lifetime, they could be 360 to, oh God, I don't want to do this math.
Wait, how many years did you say it lived?
2 to 7. So let's say
2 to
180
7.
times
So if
7.
they lived at their most,
They could have like
and we
1,000
said 180
kids.
a year, that's 1260. Wow.
That's a lot of
Mappa's
babies.
working.
I know. That's more than Nick Cannon.
Elon's giving them a run for their money. So the more you know. Look at us. We're turning into Todd. We're learning about worms.
Do we put the educational icon on our podcast now?
Educational with F-bomb. Fun facts about worms. They have a lot of babies.
Yep.
But she is a lot bigger. So I'm wondering if she has a lot more babies than that.
1,000 at a time.
But if they have to lay next to each other, then there's another giant worm.
Oh.
That's trading off, which means there's more than one. Tremors, baby.
That's true. That's true.
Wow. Look at us. We're learning big brain. So with all of that said and done, do we think that Todd learned his lesson? No. We learned he did not, because what happens?
Well, he decides to torture other animals instead.
He chooses pretty
butterflies.
ones. Yeah, he's like, well, butterflies are harmless. That's fine, which is kind of funny because, you think about where butterflies come from, and it's like still a very insect, wiggly driven thing.
I like your shoulder movement. Wiggly.
Wiggly.
Yeah.
It's like an insect, wiggly driven creature, but this at least turns into a butterfly.
It's a fat, fuzzy worm.
That flies.
That's what caterpillars are, right?
Pretty much. So he's taken to collecting butterflies. However, he's really mean. He's still very mean because he suffocates them.
Mm-hmm.
He gets them, puts them in a chloroform jar until they suffocate and die.
Yep.
That is so mean.
I know people who do this. This is an actual thing, and it is always sat wrong with me.
That's awful.
Mm-hmm.
They're literally gas chambering a butterfly.
Yep.
And then he pins it.
Yeah, just, for wall art.
So he's pinning butterflies. His sister likes it more because he's not going to put butterflies in her food, and she thinks it's a pretty hobby. However, Todd's working one night. He gazes up, and he sees a giant butterfly. And the butterfly's got silver pin.
Oh, yeah. Todd's getting wall arted.
Is the butterfly going to chloroform him? or just pin him straight to the wall? I want him pinned straight to the wall. I don't want him chloroformed. I don't want him gas chambered. Put him on the wall.
You want him to fill every second of this experience.
He's such a mean child.
He is. He is. Take that, Todd. You
Take
tool.
that. Yeah, you tool. Now, how'd you feel about the TV episode?
Different direction, for sure. I mean, I'm not going to speak to the acting, but I think that like the characters are a little less repulsive for the most part. It diverges from the book so much that I can't really even say it's the same thing.
I'm with you. It deviates so much. I'm not sure I can compare them.
Mm-mm.
Like, yes, it has Todd and Danny. Yes, it has Worms. It has his sister and her friend. However, a lot of it gets deviated from. I do like that they pulled out the haunted house thing. I like that they pulled out scenes that just didn't make sense. That was a solid choice, but they went straight for the giant worm. I think I appreciate that, though. They kept it worm driven versus distracting with other things.
Yes. Yeah, there were things that I did really like about this. I thought that the score for it was very like Harry Manfredini. Like I got total Friday the 13th vibes from the score of this thing. And the sound design was good too, with the slithering sounds and everything that they did there. But yeah, I mean, school is barely even an issue. And in fact, at the end of the episode, the science fair hasn't even happened. So it's just a different story altogether. And for what it is, I think it's okay. As these episodes go, this is one that I don't find repulsive.
I honestly feel like as a cohesive unit, I enjoyed the TV episode more than the book. In terms of what had more finesse, I do feel the book with its specific scenes that we talked about that we really enjoyed just landed better.
Yeah, I agree with that because the TV episode was missing the best scene, which was the bathtub scene.
The bathtub.
Perhaps,
which I guess, how do you show a kid in a bathtub? So.
Yeah, it's not easy to do.
I do feel like they tried to compromise with that one by having him go in the lake, being pulled down into the lake by the worms.
True. Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. I feel like that was the compromise, but it wasn't the same.
Mm-hmm.
But again, kids television, I don't know how you could execute that scene with a child.
Right. Yeah. I agree with
Unless
that.
you did it like a swimming pool or something. But even then, yeah, like it's so being alone in your bathroom, in the bathtubs there, in the drain. Like I don't know how they would have done that one.
No. And in the swimming pool, it would have to be unexpected so he could be fully clothed as he's pulled in by the worms and stuff. So I think the way they handled it was right. It's just not as good as
not as exciting.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But yeah, it's I feel like had they been able to figure out a way to include that, that would be top notch, and that probably would have made this TV episode better than the book, just in general. But because some of these super creepy effective scenes were not included in the TV episode, it was fine. It was all right.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought so too. This, I don't know. Are we to find? Oh! I did want to just give a quick shout out to Worm World magazine, which is what the episode opens with. I'm like, man, he's got the latest issue.
Love the shout out.
No,
I have no shout outs today.
No. Any shout ins? Shout.
What's
it about? I just love whenever shows create art of, like magazines or fake milk cartons or whatever, and it's milk instead of milk or whatever. It's always fun.
Milk. Miak.
Miak.
That's a little earnest for you.
Yeah.
I think that overall TV episode was fine.
Mm-hmm.
I would venture to say that the character Todd was toned down and a little bit more palatable than the book. And Danny was this like complete switch up because they make you see Danny as like this underdog, kind of chubby, redheaded kid that follows Todd around. And in the TV episode, we have an athletic kid who's kind of like he gets pissed and writes him off when he thinks that he pranked him. How dare you prank me? We're friends. Now we're not. And walks off. So yeah. And Todd doesn't seem to really like Danny too much. He's more of like his little peon. And in the TV episode, you get an idea that their friendship is sincere. Todd and Danny are sincerely friends. Todd seems upset when he thinks that he lost Danny as a friend. And then when they make up, it's like, oh, bro moment.
Yeah, a bromance.
It's a bromance. So I did like that they kind of eased up on that stuff, at least in the TV episode.
Agreed. Yeah, they have a bromant and they go fishing, which is a different.
I almost forgot about that. Ugh.
Yeah.
Let me just smack my head again.
Good Foley.
I'm just saying that was.
Yeah. Yeah, the fish throw a sandwich to Todd and pull him in the water, and you can just hear him talking, even though like he's drowning, presumably. You can hear him talking full, like a regular person. It's a terrible ending to an otherwise okay episode.
That was awful. And he's like, I promise I'll never go fishing again. And then, of course, he has to be whiny. They let him go, presumably, because he's like, oh, thanks. Wait, you're going to make me swim all the way back? And it's like, really, bro? These fish were about to eat you and kill you. What the fudge?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Whiny Todd. It was, but, you look back at the 90s and that was the humor. That was, what they did in a lot of kids' shows. This is very reminiscent of the style back then. It does not hold up.
No.
To time. This is just, you watching that, I'm like, this is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
They could have left it. Honestly, I think it was a waste of location and editing and time and budget to do the fish scene because they could have just ended it the way the book ended. He's in his basement. He's penning little fake butterflies and he sees a shadow, and they could have done a shadow so easily over him and like seen a gleam of like a long needle or something. And it's like, oh no, they gasp.
Yeah. I mean, you figured it out, and that would not take that much. It's all shadow work. So
maybe they were trying to fill time. I don't know, but
that's what it felt like.
It was extended. It was ridiculous. And like you said, it was a not great way to end something that was actually okay.
Yeah.
So
I would say leave them on a high note. That was not a high note. So
definitely not. Not a high note. But so I don't know. If I had to compare the two and pick one, I would pick the TV episode, even with its like redonkulous ending, over the book.
I'm with you. This is a rare TV show is better than book moment. So let's soak it in, I guess.
Yeah. Although I would say still read the book because the scene in the bathroom and, the scenes where he's going to eat the worms, like those are good. Those are fun. Yeah. I would just pull those out. Honestly, if like there were Stine short stories, I would pull that out and put it in a Stine short story and be like, that's it. That's a standalone thing.
Yes. That would be great. That would be great. Yeah. If we had more time and knew where they were in the book, we could just do a dramatic reading and save everyone the trouble.
Tasty little Stine bites.
I like it.
Yeah. But it just, other than that, I think, the giant worm and all of that. And, the TV episode was fine, but worms are so phallic. And they really went in on the phallic, imagery that I'm like, dude, are we watching like Goosebumps adult content? It's Goosebumps After Dark. That's what it felt like. Like the even when they were crawling out of the mud as he's walking in the basement, you see like three things shoot out and look around, and I'm like, why in the world did they go for that production design?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It was, I mean, if we both caught it, which granted we're not the purest of minds, but that being said, if we both caught it, clearly it's a point.
Pun intended. They really did, honestly. Even the giant worm, it's just like, what is this? I don't know. I think the production design could have been a little bit more tame.
Yeah.
Like, even if they have to look like silly worms, tone it down, because this is a child's program at the end of the day.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I guess like the puppetry work was cool. I just, it should have looked a little different.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Or a lot different even.
Yeah, a lot different. A little different. But yeah, so that was my one thing with the episode. I'm just like, really? That's the choice we made? I do love that they leaned into the worms being actually sentient when he gets pulled down into that little worm cave thing, and it says like something about like what, like Todd will pay or Todd, something like that. And then he sees the little worms crawling, and they're the little worms are like, it's trailing off. They're the ones riding it.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, it is the worms in the TV episode.
And I did like the time we spent in the worm cave. Like, I thought that was kind of fun. Good set design and everything.
It was fun. I think they had made some fun choices. What'd you say?
I said until phallic worm showed up.
Phallic worm. Yeah. But, they had a lot of solid choices that they made for the TV episode, which we rarely say. However, I think they could have done a little bit better and skipped the end that they chose. Yeah.
I agree with that.
It's just me, though.
No, it's not just you. It's just we. Maybe someone disagrees.
It's a we. It's a we, a Wario. So now, last final thought on this. How do we feel about the cover? Now, we have the backstory. Anybody that listened to our Tim Jacobus special knows the backstory. If not, go take a listen. Yeah. He explains the process behind the cover. But knowing what we know, how do you feel about the cover?
It's fine. I don't want to say it's bad. I like the color palette utilized because, as we discussed in our bracket, like purples and I like it of purples. But that said, I don't know. Like, it feels very empty for a Goosebumps cover. I think the best ones are just chock full of detail, and this one doesn't have a whole lot going for it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that it's not as spooky and as goosebumpsy as the other ones. Although I will say this, having like a super close-up shot of the cover and revisiting the TV episode, they stayed pretty true to the worms, at least the little worms that are seen in the cover or That's on true. The cover. I do wonder, though, I'm looking at the math problems because I'm a nerd like that. Do you think Tim researched like the age that these characters are at and like, this is the math that they do at that age? These are real problems.
Oh, man, I don't know.
47 times 48. But yeah, I mean, I think there could have been more with this cover and maybe just a different take on it, because worms coming out of the bathtub, I think, would have been a much better landing. Even if he's not in the bathtub, because you have to be careful with the child, right? And the assumption you're in this private space. But if just having like a bathtub full of worms and the worms dripping out over it, like that would be amazing. And so different choices. But he didn't know that was a scene because as we know, he didn't know, as we were told by Tim, he's drawing the covers having never read the story. He just gets a log line. So that would have been a tricky one to pull off.
Yeah. I mean, the cover that I think I would have maybe wanted would be like the water, it's a bubble bath or whatever. And you can just see his feet sticking out of it. And you can see worms starting to fall out of the faucet. Like, that's kind of safe and, doesn't give away too much.
I think it's not safe enough. The implication of a naked child, even if it's just their feet,
that's fair,
would have been too much, which is why I'm assuming they didn't even go there in the TV episode as well.
Yeah.
Even the implication is a little too far, I'm assuming, when it comes to children's content. However, definitely would be cool to have a bathtub full of worms.
Like with the trading card that we talked about earlier.
Or you could go just straight like on the nose, have someone eating a sandwich and the worms are coming out of the bottom and into the mouth and off at the side, and like that's gross.
That could work. That could really work. I will say my favorite detail of this cover as I'm staring at it is the spine of the book, how you can see the spindles and the lighting reflecting just up the row there. It looks really nice.
Yeah, the highlight on the metal pieces.
Yes, yeah. Thank you for finding the words I was trying to. I was like, how do I describe this?
I mean, that's something we've noticed on all of these covers is that Tim is really good at using color choices to show lighting, highlight. Where's your key light? Where's your low light? Where's all of these, we don't typically pay attention to. Even the shadows. If you look at the worms, the shadows under the worms, they're not black. They're dark purple. And, you have hot orange. So he had mentioned to us that he uses a second lighting. And so you've got the orange that he had referenced. That's also a lighting. It's a hot spot on the worms.
That's right. Yeah.
So like some kind of orange light source is off to the foreground.
Yeah, it's the fires of hell.
Yeah, it must be.
As I'm saying it. No, I hadn't even noticed that until you just brought it up. But yeah, there they are.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then he's got his signature, Tim Jacobus, 93. Remember, he said sometimes he hides it. This one was not hidden. It's right there.
Not at all, yeah.
You know what I would have loved, though? I'm not going to lie. I would have loved, because it says math homework at the top, if it said name, and then it had T. Jacobus. That would have been funny.
That would have been great. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he does an amazing job with art. And I know, it probably wasn't too difficult for him, but just like these little subtle, beautiful touches, like the orange lighting that creates like the hot spots. And then you have the white lighting that's, something else off to the maybe upper right corner. And it's like, where is this coming from? I love it. The fires of hell. Like, light from heaven. I don't know.
Yeah. Heaven and hell.
All meeting together on this math homework, which I'm sure we all felt at some point.
It's the math homework at the end of the world.
Oh, gosh.
Apocalypse math homework.
Algebra Armageddon.
Sounds like a band.
It is now.
It is now, so. Yeah. And the tagline for this one is homework was never this gross before, which I don't know how much that applies to this story. But anyways.
I mean, he is doing the science fair and it ends up in his backpack a lot.
True. Yeah, good point.
If you could create a new tagline, what would it be?
Don't be a dick, Todd.
Don't be a dick. Off to the mirror world with you. Todd belongs in the mirror world. In fact, most of these characters in this book belong in the mirror world.
Maybe this is in an alternate reality. This book is set in mirror world and we just didn't know it.
That would make so much more sense.
It makes me like it more.
Yeah, I think I'm down with it. Okay. Mirror world. Changed everything. This works. It passes.
I mean, do you have a tagline that would work for this one?
No. Nope. I'm going with this one.
This one will give you tremors.
Slow down when you chew. I don't know.
Yeah.
Bath time was never so slippery.
Ooh.
Wait. Let's just let it go. Yeah. Let it go. Homework.
Yep.
Gross homework.
Conceal, don't feel, don't let them know.
All right. What is the next book that we are reading?
The next book that we are doing will be book number 22, Ghost Beach.
Released in August of 1994. So I'm excited because I remember the cover, but I don't remember the book. So
Same. It's a great cover too. So I'm excited.
It had me at Ghosts.
Yeah, it had me at beach.
and Hammeat Cemetery. I see the tombstone. So I'm excited for this one. I'm looking forward to it. But until then, thank you to everyone for tuning in to Listeners Beware. Are you looking for more spooky podcast content? Check out 3 Haunted Podcast, where Ashley and friends talk about all the things that go bump in the night.
And if you feel like getting retro, you can find more from me at the Wax Nostalgic Network, available on YouTube and wherever podcasts are available. Also, feel free to drop us a line via email at listenersbewarepodcast@gmail.com and follow us on our various social media channels by searching Listeners Beware Podcast.
Until next time.
It's too dark. Make it for kids.
Make it for kids.
Yeah.
How was the haunted house for kids?
Timing.
Sorry. Sorry. Shit.
No, it's okay. You need to take it?
No, I just need to mute it. Apologies.
No, it was actually pretty funny timing, talking about haunted houses
Haunted
when
house.
that starts playing.
That's awful.
Mhm.
They're literally gas chambering a butterfly.
Yep.
And then he pins it.
Yeah, just, for wall art.
Well, as one does.
Not this one.
I do that for people. I like to collect people with tattoos, especially. That's art on art.
Oh, that's true.
Very meta.
Oh, man.
Right?
And if it's Art Alexicus from Everclear, then it's art on art on art.
Oh, boy.
I was trying to think of an art who has a tattoo.
How many
and I'm
arts can we go?
I don't
Art
know.
on art on art on art.
I don't know. I don't think Art
We're going to
Garfunkel.
figure it out.
Yeah.